Okay, welcome to Critical Thinking and Introduction. So, this is a class on how to think. So, critical thinking involves many skills. One is reasoning, one is evaluating the information that you have, one is problem solving, decision making, and analyzing. And it's a lot more that you need to apply. And there's no one recipe that you can use for critical thinking. You have to apply your mind. So let's see. So first of all, for thinking you need a language, and we use language to communicate. The language is ambiguous. So what do we mean by that? So let's look at an example. Ahmed said bye to Raja as he got into a bus. Who got into a bus? Ahmed or Raja? So it's understood from the context who he refers to. But it can be ambiguous. So language is ambiguous, but we try to make language as precise as possible to avoid ambiguity. And then we'll see. So the first thing we need to make sure is the words we use. It should be precise. We cannot use vague words. It should be exactly what you want to say. And what does it mean to say language is precise? Basically, you want to make sure that what you're saying is what the reader says is the listener understands the meaning of the sentence as intended by the speaker or the author. It's not what everything has multiple interpretations. We'll look at that later on, but you should try to convey as much as possible. And what is imprecise? There are many problems with language. Words are not understood by the listener. If you use big words, you'll confuse the listener. They may actually fill in from the way you speak, but they don't really know what it means. And then use wrong words. They sound like the word you want to intend to say, but they're something else. They will confuse the listener. And wrong spelling, that's a strict no-no. That means you probably don't have a command of language. And wrong grammar. Grammar has to be correct. And grammar is very hard to define, but it's easy to spot wrong grammar. And then of course there's ambiguous grammar. There are many ways. How many pauses where you put a comma can cause ambiguity in the language. So can you think of all these examples of each of them? Well, think about them. We'll just continue. So the same sentence can mean different things to different people. So this is an example from Facebook. So this guy is saying, what is your opinion about food shortage in the rest of the world? One guy says, what does food mean? What does shortage mean? What does the rest of the world mean? What does opinion mean? So take a sentence. Different people have different aspects of the word that they are interested in, and there's no universal guidance for what is right and wrong, and what it means, and what is the context of the sentence. So let's see. And language and logic is deeply tied to philosophy. And who is the biggest name in philosophy of language? Ludwig Wittgenstein, this guy, and his book Philosophical Investigations. And he said in his quote, he says, if a lion could talk, we would not understand him. In Philosophical Investigations 1953, page 223, he says that. So what does that mean? So language, first of all, lions do not speak our language, and we just guess what they're trying to say when they growl or roar. But even if they spoke English, we would not understand it because the context is so different. It's like you meet a different person from a different tribe, and then they have these rituals, and you'll never understand that unless you share a common heritage or common background. That's what this means. It's not enough to speak the same English. If you met somebody from the moon and they spoke English, you'd probably talk the same language, but still you'll not understand each other. And the second problem is people hear what they want to, not what you want them to hear. So there's an example from a cartoon. You never listen to me, you only hear what you want to hear. And the guy says, sure, I will have a beer. So when you're talking or giving a speech, is not enough to think that you are right. You must also keep in mind what your listeners understanding from what you say. And this is a very common problem. People have different points of view. Sometimes you can't even argue with people because they don't understand, or they already have a preconceived notion of what is right and wrong. So let's look at the different points of view. So reality is so complex that the same event can appear differently to different people from different points of view. For example, in this cartoon we see there are 4 sticks on this side, on the left side, and there are 3 sticks on the right side. Of course, this is a optical illusion, but the idea is clear. And we'll look at another example, how people see things differently. So same picture, this is original photo, and different newspapers can report the same event by which part of the photo you crop. So the against war picture will crop off the humanitarian aspect on the left side, and on the right side, in the support of the war, you see the soldier doing a good deed. On the right side, left side, you see the soldier doing a bad deed, and the original photo is like that. So you can distort views by the way you interpret or talk about it. So let's look at Calvin and Hobbes. So this is Calvin. It's a famous cartoon by Bill Watterson. He says, you call it news, this is informative, this is soundbite, this is entertainment, this is sensationalism. So one thing to remember, news is paid for, and whoever pays for decides what they want to say. They will not show something that disagrees with them. So when you read news, you probably go to Google News and read multiple sources from multiple viewpoints, and then you decide, okay, does it make sense, is it correct, is it right? And sometimes you don't know. In that case, you have to suspend your judgment. Then we all know or should know that we have biases. It's like we see the world the way we are, not the way the world is. Is it a fact or an opinion? So we have a cartoon of a rhinoceros. He's drawing a landscape in Africa, and his paintings, all of them have a hill in the front, but that hill is not really in the landscape, but it's on his horn. So that's his bias, and he has colored glasses, you would say, and you see the world through colored glasses, the glasses that you wear. So there's this guy, Bertrand Russell, the philosopher. What he says, a stupid man's report of what a clever man says can never be accurate, because he unconsciously translates what he hears into something he can understand, and that's a very common problem. So don't believe everything you hear, read or see on TV, newspaper, rumors, magazines, books, lectures. You must think at all times. There are no recipes for right or wrong. So let's look at the more aspects of it. Language is culturally sensitive. What means in one culture means the opposite in something another language. So in this case, there's a cartoon jury of English majors. The jury is out here, and they're listening. And the guy in the dock is saying, "I didn't do nothing." And what's the problem with this? Didn't is a not negation, and nothing is a negation. If you negate two, it means yes, he did something. So logically, he's confessing to the crime. But in African American lingo, double negation is same as single negation. But in logic, double negation means a positive event. And let's look at the next aspect of language. Your grammar shows your background. Okay, so this is the thing. From Google suggests, if you type how can you as in character you, it says how can you get herpes, how can you get HIV, how can you get AIDS, how can you get some VD disease, how can you get a broken heart, how can you mend a broken heart. And then if you use good words like how can an individual impact the course of history, how can an individual make a difference. So, and these are different sentences typed into Google, and Google collects them all together and shows you from what other people type with anonymity, so you won't see names, proper nouns, but you get an idea what people are typing with your kind of spelling. So people can, just by watching your grammar, they can tell what kind of background you come from by comparing with similar people with similar language. Yeah, so you got to have a good language to be in the right, and your language is reflection of your friends or the company you keep. So punctuation matters also. Punctuation is basically a comma or pause in a comma. English teacher once wrote these words on the whiteboard: woman without a man is nothing. Then asked the students to punctuate the words. So the boys wrote, woman without her man is nothing. The girls wrote, woman without her man is nothing. So just by putting a comma, you can negate the meaning of a sentence. Okay, so and then we look at more issues that we're going to cover in the course. So what is cognitive dissonance? So this is a cartoon out here. is a father telling his kid, how many times have I told you not to steal pencils from school? Don't I get you enough from office? So basically stealing from office and telling his child not to steal from school. The problem is his words don't match his action. So, and people usually pay attention to your actions, not what you say. So cognitive dissonance is a discomfort experience when simultaneously holding two or more conflicting cognitions, ideas or beliefs. It's like you believe in God, you don't believe in God, and then you're in a cognitive dissonance. You're not really sure which is right, and it's hard to be in cognitive. It's easier to just be one way or the other, or is it still harder to say I don't know? Why is it hard? Okay, so one is lack of respect for reason, one is intellectual arrogance, unwillingness to listen, one is intellectual laziness, and then lack of respect for evidence. This will also sabotage your ability to think critically. And ego is the biggest thing that gets in your way of thinking critically. You already have an opinion, it will impact your ego, saying that hey, like, you are wrong, and a lot of people can't take that. They rather be wrong than be wrong forever than accept that they are wrong and correct their opinion. So finally, if you have any questions, send them in the comments below. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you.